Good afternoon, dear students. Today I will explain this important lesson in detail. My greatest Olympic prize. While you follow this video, kindly have your books open at page 104. It was the summer of 1936. The Olympic Games were being held in Berlin because Hitler, like a child, irrationally had kept on claiming, insisting means had kept on claiming that the German athletes who were to take part in the competition belonged or were members of the master race, that they were members of this superior master Aryan race, and they would not be defeated by any other athlete who were coming to take part in the competition. This claim by Hitler, this childish claim by Hitler that the athletes, the German athletes were invincible, they would not be defeated by any other in the competition, filled the German people with national pride and this fervor, this tremendous enthusiasm that they were Germans. They were willing to sacrifice anything and everything for the greater glory of Germany. This feeling of being Germans, this feeling for Germany ran very high in the hearts and minds of the people in 1936 in Germany. I wasn't too worried about all this. He says that he wasn't worried about what was happening and what was being claimed in Germany. He was focused more on his training. I trained, sweated and disciplined myself for 6 years. So he said that he had trained very hard, he had worked very hard, sweated, and he had maintained discipline for 6 long years, sacrificing a lot. All with one single purpose in mind, was to come to take part in the Berlin Olympics and win a medal for himself and his country. While I was going over on the boat, all I could think about was taking home 1 or 2 of those gold medals. While he was coming to Germany to take part in the Olympic Games, he was thinking and hoping with one single thought in his heart and mind that he win a medal or 2 and take it back with him. I had my eye especially on the running boat jump. So he had kept his focus on this particular event and wanted to win this event, and that was the running boat jump, what we call here as long jump. And he mentions here, a year before, as a sophomore at the Ohio State University, I set the world's record of 26 feet 8, 1 by 4 inches. So he says that as a second year student at the Ohio State University, he had set the world record of 26 feet 8, 1 by 4 inches. This was known to the Germans. Therefore, they were trying to propagate the idea that the German athletes were superior and no other athlete would be able, or no other athletes would be able to beat the Germans. Everyone kind of expected me to win the Olympic event hands down, and everyone believed in USA, across the globe, that he would win the board jump event without a doubt. I was in for a surprise, but when he arrived at the stadium, he was surprised. Why he was surprised? When the time came for the board jump trials, for the qualifications, I was startled to see a tall boy hitting the pit at almost 26 feet on his practice leaps. During the practice jumps, he had seen this young, tall boy hitting the pit, jumping and landing, covering a distance of 26 feet in the sand. And it was during his practice jumps. He turned out to be a German named Lutz. Here it is spelled as L-U-Z. The spelling also includes a T, L-U-T-Z. So Lutz. I was told that Hitler had kept him under wraps, evidently hoping to win the jump with him. So he was told, he had learnt that Hitler had very cunningly and very smartly kept him under wraps, had hidden him away from the attention of the world media and the world, just to pitch him. And it was very clear why he did so. He was hoping to win a medal in this particular event, with him as the German athlete representing his idea of Aryan supremacy. I guessed that if long won, it would add some new support to the Nazis' Aryan superiority theory. So he realized that if Long would end up winning, then it could prove the Nazis' claim of Aryan superiority to be true, and people would then be even more wild. So he goes on to mention, after all, I am a Negro. He says that he, being an African American, a little short-tempered, a little hot under the collar about Hitler's ways, he wasn't very happy with the ways in which Hitler was functioning and all the wrong ideas that he was preaching, the way he was administrating Germany. He was determined, he said, to go out there and really prove, really show the Führer, the Chancellor of Germany, Hitler, who was the master race. And what he mentions here is, and his master race, who was superior and who wasn't. He was very determined to prove that to Hitler and his followers and members of the Nazi party. An angry athlete is an athlete who will make mistakes, as any coach will tell you. So an angry athlete would not be able to concentrate, very often make mistakes, and any coach will agree that an angry athlete is one who is bound to fail. I was no exception. So he said that he was no exception. He fell into the same category of committing mistakes because he was angry. On the first of my 3 qualifying jumps, I leaped. He had jumped from several inches beyond the takeoff board for a foul. So he had committed this mistake. He had jumped several inches beyond the board and he was disqualified at the end of his first jump. I leaped from several inches beyond the takeoff board for a foul. On the second jump, I fouled even worse. So second jump also he made the same mistake, and this time it was worse. Did I come 3,000 miles for this? He questioned himself. I thought bitterly. He began to think bitterly in his heart. To foul out of the trials and make a fool of myself, to come so far and not qualify even to participate in the finals. Had he come that far to prove himself to be a fool? He thought to himself. He was very disappointed and sad about it. Walking a few yards from the pit, I kicked disgustedly at the dirt. So he was very disappointed with himself, and as he was walking away, he kicked the dirt in an angry manner. Suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder. He felt a hand on his shoulder. I turned to look into the friendly blue eyes of the tall German board jumper. So he turned and he saw this young man standing right before him. And I turned, looked into his friendly blue eyes. He was the same person who he had seen earlier, sitting at 26 feet during his trial jumps. He had easily qualified for the finals on his first attempt. So Lutz Long had already qualified. He offered me a firm handshake and he shook his hand, introducing himself to Jesse Owens. Jesse Owens, I am Lutz Long, he said. I don't think we've met. He spoke English well, though with a German twist to it. So here Jesse Owens mentions that Lutz Long had spoken to him with an accent or lisp that was German. He had spoken English, it was very clear from what he mentions, but there he had this German twang. This word twang is actually not acceptable as far as proper English is concerned, but just to help you understand, the words are accent or lisp, L-I-S-P, lisp. So he goes on to say, glad to meet you, I said. So he replied to Lutz Long and had said that he was very glad to meet him. Then, trying to hide my nervousness, I added, how are you? So he was a little nervous because he hadn't made it yet to the finals. So just to hide his nervousness, he asked him as to how he was doing or how he was. I'm fine. The question is, how are you? So he says, as far as he was concerned, he was fine. But how was he? What do you mean? I asked. So Jesse Owens had asked him, what did he mean by saying that? Something must be eating you, he said. So he knew that there was something that was worrying Jesse Owens, and he very openly told him that he had realized that Jesse Owens was disturbed regarding something. Then he went on to say, proud the way foreigners are when they've mastered a bit of American slang. So Jesse Owens thought at that time that this young athlete was trying to prove how well he could speak English, and he was just trying to be smart, and that is why he had asked him that question. So he then mentions, you should be able to qualify with your eyes closed. So Lutz Long had encouraged him by saying that he could qualify easily with his eyes closed. There was no need for him to grow impatient or fret, be worried. Believe me, I know it, I told him, and it felt good to say that to someone, and he spoke his mind. He told Lutz Long, yes, he knew that he was capable enough to qualify that trial jump and do it easily. And saying so, he felt a little confident, sharing it with someone. For the next few minutes, we talked together. I didn't tell Long what was eating me, what was worrying him, what was disturbing him, but he seemed to understand my anger. But it seemed that Lutz Long had understood why Jesse was angry, and he took pains to reassure me. He had taken a lot of his time to help him calm down, gain his composure, and reinstate his self-belief. Although he'd been schooled in the Nazi youth movement, he didn't believe in the Aryan supremacy business any more than I did. So although Lutz Long had been a part of the Germany or the Nazi youth movement, and he had learned all these ideas, he had been taught all these ideas of the German Nazi ideology and their beliefs. He did not believe in the fact that he was any superior than other human beings, in this case Jesse Owens. He shared the same kind of thought, the same kind of ideas as Jesse Owens. He did not believe in Hitler's way of thinking. We laughed over the fact that he really looked the part though. So when Jesse Owens remarked that he indeed looked very smart, very handsome, and with his appearance, it perfectly fit into this idea what Hitler claimed, that the German race were superior compared to all other races. His appearance fitted absolutely well with Hitler's claim. And when Jesse joked about it, that he looked superior, he was tall and handsome, they laughed about it. An inch taller than I, he had a lean, thin, slim, muscular frame. He was muscular. Frame means his whole being. He was muscular, strong, but he was thin. Clear blue eyes. He had very clear blue eyes, he mentions here, saying that his spirit was pure and he didn't think evil like Hitler and most of the members of the Nazi party. Blonde hair, you understand the meaning of blonde colored hair, and a strikingly handsome chiseled face, and a strikingly very attractive handsome face, chiseled face meaning very sharp features he had. Finally, seeing that I had calmed down somewhat, he pointed to take off, to the takeoff board. He asked him that he could go and take his third leap. So after having calmed him down, he then went on to ask him to take his jump, knowing very well that he would make it. Look, he said, why don't you draw a line a few inches in back of the board and aim at making your takeoff from there. So he said, why did he not? If this was the board, why did he not make a mark, then come running and take off from there so that he would not cross the board and commit a foul again? You'll be sure not to foul. So that is the idea he gave him. And you certainly ought to jump far enough to qualify. And he made it very clear to him to apply effort, to be focused and to apply effort, because he would have to really jump long. It was his third jump to qualify. So to keep that also in mind. What does it matter if you are not first in the trials? Tomorrow is what counts. So he told him it was very important for him to qualify. It did not matter who had jumped how long or what distance in this case. So he reminded him that the trials were not important. The following day, what were to happen would matter. Suddenly all the tension seemed to ebb out of my body as the truth of what he said hit me. So all the worries left him immediately. He felt free and light. He realized that Lutz Long was telling him the correct thing. How long or what distance he was covering it didn't matter. What mattered at that moment was to get qualified and then perform the following day to win. Confidently, I drew a line, a full foot in back of the board and proceeded to jump from there. So he did exactly what he had asked. A foot from the board, he drew a line and he was ready to take his jump. He did proceed and he did end up qualifying. I qualified with almost a foot to spare. So he did qualify and he had almost a foot of distance to spare. So he had done well. That night I walked over to Lutz Long's room in the Olympic Village to thank him. So he had gone to acknowledge what he had done, to thank him, to his room in the Olympic Village that evening. I knew that if it hadn't been for him, I probably wouldn't be jumping in the finals the following day. So he realized how important he had been to him that day during the trials. It was because of him that he had qualified. So he needed to show his gratitude towards what he had done. Thank him. We sat in his quarters and talked for 2 hours about track and field, about them being sportsmen and all that they did. They shared a lot of things with them. They shared about their lives and they shared their views on the world situation, the politics that was going on in the world, the situation in Germany, a dozen other things and many other things they shared. Doesn't mean, just an expression here, doesn't mean 12, but need not necessarily be 12. When I finally got up to leave, we both knew that a real friendship had been formed. So when he got up, it was time for him to leave, he realized, Lutz Long also realized that they had found in each other good friends. Lutz would go out to the field the next day, trying to beat me if he could. He knew that Lutz Long would try very hard to win the gold and beat him the following day during the real competition. But I knew that he wanted me to do my best, even if that meant me winning again. But I knew that he wanted me to do my best, even if that meant my winning. So he knew very well that Lutz Long wanted Jesse to do his best, and he knew very well, Lutz knew very well that he had risked his chances of winning, but still he was in support of Jesse trying his best. As it turned out, Lutz broke his own past record during the competition. Lutz Long actually did well and broke his past record. In doing so, he pushed me onto a peak performance, and in doing so, it pushed Jesse to try even harder and jump better than Lutz Long. I remember that at the instant I landed from my final jump, so he says that he clearly recalled that at that moment he landed from his final jump, the one which set the Olympic record of 26 feet 5 by 16 inches, as mentioned in your book. He was at my side congratulating me. And when he made that jump to cover that distance and set a world record, he had found Lutz Long beside him congratulating him. Despite the fact that Hitler glared at us from the stands, not 100 yards away, Lutz Long shook my hand hard, and it wasn't a fake smile with a broken heart sort of grip either. So he realized that this man was genuinely happy at the fact that he had won. He wasn't pretending to be happy. And Hitler was not very far away from them when Lutz Long had come and shaken his hand congratulating him. Hitler was looking at him in an angry manner. So he wasn't smiling in a fake way. It was a genuine smile. He was happy that Jesse had won. You can melt down all the gold medals and cups I have, and they couldn't be a plating on the 24-carat friendship I felt for Lutz Long at that moment. And he says, one can melt all the gold medals and cups, but it would not be enough to, plate cover. It would not be able to provide that cover to the 24-carat, the pure friendship. It would not be enough to, replace or cover the 24-carat pure friendship he felt for Long. He had shared with Long at that particular moment during the 1936 Olympic Games. Again, he says, you can melt down all the gold medals and cups I have, and they couldn't be plating on the 24-carat friendship I felt for Lutz Long at that moment. Nothing could replace, nothing could ever replace the kind of friendship that he had built and shared with Lutz Long. It was pure, much more valuable than any gold. I realized then too that Lutz Long was the epitome of what Pierre de Coubertin, founder of the modern Olympic Games, must have had in mind when he said. So he realized that this person was the true example of what Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of the modern Olympic Games, he had in mind when he had revived the Olympic Games. And he was the true embodiment. He was the living form of what this important man, Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of the modern Olympic Games, had in his mind when he had said, the important thing in the Olympic Games is not winning but taking part. The essential thing in life is not conquering but fighting well. So, this thought of Pierre de Coubertin, and what was this thought that he had shared? The important thing in the Olympic Games is not winning, but to take part, to participate is more important than winning. The essential thing, he had said, in life is not conquering but fighting well, to fight well. And Lutz Long had personified what Pierre de Coubertin had said about the games. It is participating that was more important than winning. It was fighting well that was more important than conquering. Lutz Long had in himself presented the very thought what Pierre de Coubertin had said regarding the Olympic Games. So, gentlemen, with this, I end this chapter. If you have any doubts, any kind of problems, please do ask me. I will be very happy to help you. Thank you.